When we think about supply chain design, especially from an operations perspective, we are thinking about how to design our supply chain both internally, where we're locating facilities, but also where we're purchasing raw materials and components around the globe. We also want to make sure our supply chain design is aligned with our competitive priorities and our overall strategy. Are we trying to be a low cost provider? Are we trying to be high quality and customer service oriented? Are we trying to be innovative and flexible? Those are all different designs for supply chains. So, alignment with strategy will be important. So let's get some terms and definitions out of the way. This is an example of a manufacturing firm here in the United States. So it may have final assembly here in the US, but sub assemblies in other countries. So Germany, Mexico, maybe in the US. If I'm buying directly from a company, they are considered a tier one supplier. But we can work our way backwards in the supply chain. Um, our suppliers have suppliers. They might also be in Europe, Mexico, USA, maybe China for components. And then our suppliers gets all the way back to raw materials. So in this case, you can see three tiers of supply. But in real supply chains, practical supply chains, it can be even more complicated, many, many tiers of supply. And then, of course, as we work forwards in the supply chain, we can have distributors both in the US and abroad, and have various retail outlets that those distributors provide product to as well. We can actually calculate our overall averages in terms of inventory, which is the average value of a particular type of inventory, such as raw materials, work in process, finished goods. And so the type of inventory, the value of that inventory added together, you can then use that inventory value to calculate your average weeks of supply and inventory turns. As a inventory manager or supply chain manager, you want inventory turns to be high because inventory turns will relate to your financial measures. The faster you can turn something from a raw material into a finished good and then a finished good into a sold product, you want that turnover to be quick because that gives you better cash flow. And this will, of course, have implications for, our revenue and sales, our overall costs, so cost of goods sold, operating expenses, cash flow, working capital, and our various return measures. So when we think about supply chain design, there's really two main strategies, though there are other versions within these two strategies. Let's talk about the two big ones: efficient supply chains versus responsive supply chains. So in an efficient supply chain, I'm trying to be low cost, consistent, and predictable. And this works really well for companies trying to compete on cost. But the challenge is in an efficient supply chain, I'm designing for low cost. So I'm looking at low cost transportation options like cargo ships and trains. I'm looking for low cost storage options, low cost labor options. So everything is slower, but I try to still design in predictability. So even if I have to wait, 4 weeks to receive material, I want to at least make sure it's reliable in 4 weeks, even given the delay. So efficient supply chains are focused on cost, but you do want them to be consistent and predictable. Let's contrast that to responsive supply chains. Responsive supply chains, by the definition, are trying to be responsive, and agile to changing market conditions. They're designed for this agility. So you have fast delivery, more expensive options because you want it to be fast. So this is faster transportation. This is more flexible storage and warehousing. This is more flexible, probably higher paid, higher skilled labor. And these are the environments where you might have a lot of flexible automation. So flexible robots, the more expensive, higher end automation compared to maybe like a fixed or low end automated equipment. So inefficient supply chains, this is really good for make to stock standardized items. These would be things that you would find on the shelf, let's say at a Walmart store, where the volume is high, it's a really predictable standard product, and you can make it cheaply for retail outlets. You want to, of course, have the best supply chain you can have, but the cost will really be the primary decision maker here. Compare that to responsive supply chains, where it's more about customizing to market demand. So, assemble to order, make to order, customized products. The emphasis is on variety. You shorten lead times, you shorten supply chains, you enable fast, quick delivery, you enable quick changes within a manufacturing environment, and you allow for agility and innovation built into that strategy. So, as you can see, if we were to look at these things more optimally, a responsive supply chain is a really good fit for job shop style products and small, maybe large batch products, whereas efficient supply chains are better for line and continuous processes. So this alignment is important. If you are off the alignment, you can really struggle to maintain competitiveness. So maintaining your alignment and making sure it is in line with your strategy will help you be competitive with all the other players in the market. So there are some other strategies that we can use to try to make our supply chains more efficient, more predictable. Standardization is when you make large quantities of the same thing. So, in this case, I've got a picture of, some screws or a standardized, cell service that we all use for our phones. That brings down the unit cost to be cheaper for everyone. This is why you can go to the hardware store and get a nail or get a screw for, 5 cents, 10 cents, instead of paying, $5 or $10 for that item if you were to have it made individually. So the high volume nature of a highly standardized product brings down the cost for everyone. So if that's true, why don't we have everything super standardized? Only jeans for pants, only black shirts, only white shoes. Like, why do we have so many choices if it would actually be cheaper if everything was super standardized? And the reason why, of course, is consumers want variety. Your customers want different choices, even if the standardized option would be cheaper. So, how can we take advantage of some of the elements of standardization, but still help our customers feel like they're getting a lot of variety? So here are some options. One is called delayed differentiation. You might also hear this called postponement. This is where you take a highly standardized product, but you let the consumer do something customized at the very end of the production cycle. So in this case, you have highly standardized furniture, but you might let the customer pick a stain color or a paint color that gets applied right before delivery. You may have had custom t-shirts made for your organizations in the past. It can be a highly standardized t-shirt, but it feels customized because of that screen printing logo that you put on at the end of the process. This allows you to bring unit costs down, even for something that feels more customized. We can also use a strategy on the back end of production called mass customization. This is where you make a high volume, highly standardized product, but you change something simple so that you're not changing the entire process. You're just changing maybe a material or a dye color or a different flavor of something, but otherwise the process is still exactly the same. And this is what you see in these two pictures. I've got a bunch of different shoes that are actually exactly the same shoe, just with a different color, or these, rubber duck toys that are just different colors, but otherwise exactly the same. This allows you to use the same equipment, some of the same components, the same, labor and employees, the same facilities, and robotics even. So this also allows for you to bring unit costs down, but allows for people to feel like they have variety. And then a final method that we use to try to help our customers feel like they have variety, but without overcomplicating our operations, is what's called component commonality. This is where you have multiple product lines, but they share a lot of similar components. We see this in our auto manufacturers very frequently. So the body of the vehicle might look very different from one type of vehicle that we make to another type, but a lot of the internal components might be the same, such as the same seats, the same seat belts, the same steering wheel, the same, radio and electronic system, maybe even some of the same engine components. And this does a lot of things for us. This helps us save in both design and maintenance because our mechanics are only looking at, let's say, one type of engine or one type of transmission. You are able to buy in bulk for those particular components. It is easy to store things for repair because you're only needing you need fewer things to make repairs. Um, and it streamlines the entire process. When you switch from one vehicle type to another vehicle type, you only have to change a small set of things instead of changing everything. So component commonality can also help bring down our cost and save us in some of these other indirect ways. And then, of course, when I'm designing my supply chain, I have to consider whether I want to make things in house, so make it myself, or if I want to outsource it. So, outsourcing is anytime you pay somebody else to do something for you on your behalf. For example, if I don't want to cut my front yard in the summer, I could pay a lawn service to come cut the grass for me. That would be outsourcing that responsibility. And businesses do this all the time. They might pay, accounting firms to do their taxes, or a law firm to cover legal issues, or an HR firm to do their hiring processes for them. So outsourcing is very common in business. It does not necessarily mean that the outsourcing is sent to other countries, though it could be. So outsourcing could be, just paying another company down the road for me, or it could be sending it halfway around the world. You're simply paying an external provider to either make something for you or provide a service for you. Offshoring, by contrast, is sending something to another country. So you are intentionally sending it to another country. And then you could have what's called next shoring or near shoring, which is where I would have something at a country really close to mine. So here in the US, this would be Canada or Mexico as those close partners. So I'd like to talk for a minute. Why would a company outsource? And what are the pros and cons? So there are some obvious reasons to outsource, such as, you know, my example of having someone cut the grass for me. It might save me time and where I can focus on other things. So it allows you to, outsource something to another company that specializes in that thing, like an accounting firm or a law firm. So you're outsourcing to gain specialization. It can free up my own business and my own time to focus on different things. So it's both specialty and time. And there's also like, maybe I don't have enough need to hire an in-house lawyer, but I need legal advice. So you might not have enough capacity need for your own team. So outsourcing provides that part-time niche. You can also have um, a need for, cheaper options. So many times when we outsource and outsource by offshoring, so other countries, we can take advantage of low cost labor, maybe different types of raw materials or local specialties as we look at other countries. The downside of outsourcing, however, cannot be ignored. Anytime you're paying someone else to do something for you on your behalf, you are risking quality. So when you're outsourcing, you have much less control over the quality, the deadlines, the capacity, the project management, all the things that you would be able to do if you did it yourself. You lose control of that when you start outsourcing. So outsourcing can open up specialties, open up your own capacity, save you some money, but it also opens up more risk. So if you're choosing to design a supply chain to outsource, make sure you are accounting for all of those risks. And then a final note about supply chain design, especially these days, we're incorporating all kinds of technologies. So we're looking at how to automate more and more components of our supply chain through various types of data collection, internet connected devices, IoT, which leads to better analytics and decision making. We can use AI to help us both drive internal efficiencies, but also equipment efficiencies. And then, of course, different types of robotics and automated equipment can help as well too. So we'll be doing additional videos on each of these types of technologies because they are certainly the future of supply chain design. See you next time.